Tonight, the two speakers we have tonight are very well qualified. They have been folks that have been attending our meetings for a long time, and I appreciate their faithfulness to attend as well as their willingness to teach. So if there's no questions, we're going to go ahead and get started. Any questions before we get going? Okay, the first speaker here tonight on property security is Melvin. Melvin, I don't know if you want to introduce or say what your expertise is, but I will tell you he's highly qualified to speak on this subject matter. As a matter of fact, when I spoke on this a couple of years ago, at the end of the meeting, he humbly came to me and gave me some great tips. And I'm like, wow, those are really great ideas. You need to teach this next time. And so here's next time. And so Melvin's going to teach for us tonight.
So, as you said, my name is Melvin. I'm a Marine firearms instructor, former mountain instructor, military operations, urban terrain. Done a little bit of everything. When Kobe asked me to teach it this week, a couple months back, I'll be honest with you, I was very hesitant because this is such a broad topic and everyone is going to have a different situation. I cannot say what's going to work for Dan is going to work for Billy, okay? Because everyone is going to have a different scenario. That being said, this is property security basically 101. It's things for you to think about and start putting your plan together. Great resource for this, great resource for everything, is Sun Tzu, The Art of War. And basically, in any matter, to win without fighting is best. So keep that in mind. One of the key things that's going to dictate how you set up your property security is going to be your terrain. Okay? In Missouri, we have a vast terrain, differences in terrain. And the reason I say that, I'm also a big history buff. Anybody familiar with the Battle of Waterloo? How Duke Wellington defeated Napoleon? Does anybody know how that actually came about? What the key factor was? It was the terrain.
And the weather.
The weather to some extent, but a lot of it was the terrain. Duke Wellington picked the terrain based on the fact that if you looked out, it looked flat. It wasn't. It had gently rolling hills where he hid a lot of his forces. So when Napoleon looked out over the battlefield, he did not see the force that he was actually going up against. He thought it was much smaller. So, again, terrain is definitely used to your advantage. We've got urban terrain, we've got suburban, rural, and when we talk about rural in Missouri, you've got everything from open farmland, you've got woods, which can either be dense, they can be open woods, they can be hilly, they can be flat. It depends on where you're at. So again, your defensive plan is going to depend a lot upon the terrain that you're trying to defend. My cousin had a farm. I couldn't shoot as far as I could see. I don't care if I have a Barrett 50 cal. I couldn't shoot that far. Now, there's some places in Missouri, if you get a 25-yard shot off, you're doing pretty good. Am I wrong on any of that? So, again, it's going to depend on the terrain that you're trying to defend. When you're talking suburban, you know, I would hate to try to defend a suburban area. And suburban, or not suburban, I'm sorry, urban, I'm talking Kansas City, St. Louis, downtown. Suburban, little easier, but the both of those is a 360-degree battlefield. Okay? You've got rooftops, you've got sewer systems that people can hide and attack from and maneuver through to get to where you're at. You don't have that necessarily in a rural area. That being said though, are there draws around your property that they can maneuver through without being seen? So, again, you have to know your terrain, everything surrounding your terrain, the ins and outs, and understand where someone could attack you from. Another key factor that's going to play into your defense, and it's variable. This is a variable factor that could change, and that is your opposition force. Is it a small untrained force? Is it a small trained force? Is it a large untrained force or a large trained force? Okay? And what is their firepower? Depending on whether they're trained or untrained is going to help you understand how they're most likely going to attack. Most likely. If the individuals are smart, they're going to change it up. So, I will say this, it is much easier to defend a position than it is to attack. I always got chosen to be the opposition force, and I loved it. Simply because I knew the tactics that were going to be used against us. And by knowing the tactics, I knew exactly what they were going to do. 3 of us held a combat town for 3 hours one time. We all ended up dying, but we took out 36 Marines in the process. 36. That's what, it took 40 because the platoon was trying to take us out. So they had a few left at the end of the day. And again, it is because we knew how they were going, their tactics they were going to use. Plus, it's much easier to defend than it is to attack. If you're dealing with a trained unit, again, most likely, they're going to try to make entry into your defensive position, and we're assuming your defensive position is a building of some sort. House, most likely. They're going to try to make entry from the highest point possible. If you have a 2 or 3 story house or building, they're going to try to come in the 2nd or 3rd story. Anybody know why?
Fighting down rather than fighting up.
Exactly. It's much easier to fight downhill than it is to fight up. So a trained force is going to try to breach at the highest point possible. Whereas an untrained force, they're going to probably look at what appears, and I use that word, appears to be the most vulnerable spot. So, you need to know where your weak spots are in your defensive position. And what appears to be your weak spots, because you can turn those weak spots into not weak spots. I've had this conversation with one gentleman in this room. It is a giant invitation to come through this area, okay? And that's where I would focus my firepower, okay? I would entice them in. I would set them a cup of coffee and a donut out there to get them to come in that entryway, okay? Because what they don't know is what's on the inside, and that I'm prepared for them. So, I hope everybody sees how difficult a topic this is. Because I don't know what this gentleman's house is set up like. Don't know what this lady's house is set up like. I bet they're not the same. And I don't bet a whole lot, okay? I only bet when I know I'm gonna win, so I don't bet a whole lot. But I'd be willing to bet a Coke on that one. Another key factor that's going to play on your defense is your abilities, your firepower, and your numbers, okay? We all do not have the same abilities when it comes to defense. I am sure there are many in this room that could probably take me out in a heartbeat, and I wouldn't even know what hit me. But you have to recognize what your abilities are and play to your strengths and improve your weaknesses in setting up your defense plan. Because if you don't, then you're gonna get beat. Also, what type of firepower do you have? Okay? A Barrett 50 cal, they'll reach out and touch somebody. But if your maximum range on your field of fire is 25 yards, what good's a Barrett 50 cal gonna do? If you're in heavy, deep woods with a lot of underbrush, it's not gonna do you that much good. Now, at my cousin's place, I definitely have one. So, again, you've got to know what type of firepower you need to have for that defensive situation. And know how to utilize it effectively. Your numbers, okay? How many people do you have in your defensive plan? Is it you and your wife? You and your wife and your kids? How many? Because that is going to also affect your defense plan. Ever since our kids were young, and they're both grown now, little Melvin is no longer little Melvin, even though we call him little Melvin. Is he little Billy?
Yeah, not so much.
My wife and I always had a defense plan to protect them. If something happened outside the house, she had a position in the house to defend them should somebody make it past me. Okay? That's a two-person defense plan. But we wasn't expecting a sizable force either. So, it worked well. If you have larger numbers in your force, key question is, are they all going to be there when it hits the fan? Probably not. Okay? So if you have people coming in, you need to have a preliminary plan to be able to defend smaller number than what you are intentional, that you throwing numbers out. If you got 6 in your plan, okay, in your defense plan, but you start out with 2, you need to have a plan for the 2 to be able to defend until the other 4 arrive. Assuming that they all can make it. Because realistically, depending on what the situation is, you may only end up with 4. So you have to be able to adapt to your numbers that you have available. Another key thing, since most likely we're not all going to be together when the balloon goes up, how are you going to get into your defensive position? Okay? Sounds pretty simple, walk through the front door, right? Billy's already there. Hey Billy, how's it going? If it's nighttime, let's assume he has thermal, night vision. He's really not going to be able to make me out that well. Other than a heat signature and a green body. He's not going to be able to see who I am. So you need to have a plan in place to be able to identify yourself so Billy doesn't take me out. Does that make sense? Because if someone comes bebopping up to your door in the middle of the night, who do you know who it is? And most likely it's probably going to be dark. And in my plan, it'll be dark. Because light says, here I am. To anybody that wants to know, and light travels far at night. Okay? I'm going to keep it as dark as possible. Because I don't want anybody to know where I am. Lights play a good portion to light up a perimeter. It can go either way. My personal preference is as dark as possible. So, you might develop a challenge and password system. Okay? Anybody know the correct method on the challenge and password? Oh, you got Navy on it. You know the proper method, challenge and password? Okay. You see it all the time. Someone walks up and says, orange. Okay. No. You have a challenge word and you have a password. And you use the challenge word in the sentence. And then the response, you use the password in the sentence. That way, if someone is watching you, they've got to try to figure out which word in that sentence is the password. So if they decide they want to sneak through, they've got to try to figure it out. Key point, make sure everybody that needs to know knows your challenge and password. Because the last thing you want to do is pull up the checkpoint, have the guard come over, look inside and say, hey, do you have any pineapple in here? And your driver not know what the challenge and password was and go, why would I have any pineapples in here? With a few sentence enhancers in there. Okay? So make sure everybody needs to know knows. Because I forgot to pass that to my driver one time. And as soon as I said no, but we had some herring, he understood what was going on. But he didn't know why they were asking if we had any pineapple. Our family, it's a standing phrase. We have that within our family that if the question's asked, that depending on how it's answered, it's basically, is there a situation, are you in trouble? Is it a 911 situation? Okay? We had that phrase, we've had it forever. And it never hurts, you know, because if my wife says a particular phrase to me, I know something's wrong. And I'm calling 911 and I'm going ready to go to this place. Okay? That is good for everyday usage. And you might develop something in that along with your challenging password, because who's to say if Dan didn't get stopped on the way getting to his location, and I've got leverage on him, that he's gonna get through and I'm coming in right behind him. Okay? So, you might enhance that just a little bit. The standard is a challenging password, but you might have a challenged password, and yeah, here's the password, but there's trouble. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah. Our personal families thing, I told Billy one time, he was like, and Billy knows me fairly well. He didn't even catch it. Okay? But it's that simple of a phrase. But to our immediate family and Billy, who I'll have to take out later, we know what that phrase means. Same with challenging passwords. You need to have some type of challenging password to get in to your defensive position. Former Scout Sniper, also former TOEs. Both of those, we love high positions, okay? I want the high ground. So if I can take high ground, that's where I want to be. So that is something to think about when you're setting up your defense position. Again, make the enemy fight uphill. Okay? Just like if I'm attacking, I want to fight downhill, I'm going in at the highest level. Okay? Take that away from them, make them fight uphill. If you control the high ground, they're going to have to fight uphill. In your defensive positions, who knows what a mouse hole is? Yes, ma'am. It is. It's also a small hole you can shoot out of. Okay? It's a hidden hole. You can build them in. If you've got gables on your house and you have the gables in, perfect place to put a mouse hole. You got the high ground. It's not obvious. You're concealed. And you can take shots. So without them, now if you just start firing repetitively, they're going to track onto that mouth hole real fast. And they're going to shoot right through the wall and take you out. Because what most people do not understand, a very common caliber, Barracks just scared me, I'll tell you that right now. Barracks 50 cals are common, are becoming more common. They're going to go through today. But even a 7.62, which is the standard round for AK-47, or equivalent is the .308 Winchester, exact same round, will penetrate through brick and into a house. So if you're standing behind, if you got a brick veneer on your house, and you're standing behind the wall and I know where you're at, I'm gonna make your day not a good one. You have concealment, but you do not have cover. Now, I have not tested this. In theory, it makes perfect sense. Kobe says he has tested it, so I'm going to take him at his word until I have personally tested it. But you can make a good defensive barrier. Half inch, right? And it was half inch plywood.
Yes.
Take some 2x6 metal studs, build you a box, half inch sheet of plywood on each side, and 3/4 inch clean base rock on the inside. It will stop up to a 308.
I tested it at 308, couldn't go anywhere near going through it after
Okay.
30 rounds in the same spot.
You mean like chat?
Well, you want it a little bit bigger, and the reason is because the thinner you go, you can start creating a hole. What's sand and chat gonna do? It's gonna leak out. 3/4 inch base rock is gonna deflect that round basically down into that box, and you can create a bigger hole, and it's just not gonna pour out. It might, and I'd love to test it. Actually, I am going to test it, and I got the pistol to test it with. My cousin has a Smith & Wesson 500. I want to test that. I'm going to test it.
I want to see the results of it, see if it goes through.
Because in theory, it's going to deflect that round down into the box. Okay?
You said 2x6.
Yeah, metal stud. And basically, you're just creating a box to hold the base rock. Now, the downside of that, they're very heavy. Okay, so it's not something you're going to easily pack around. It's not something that I would necessarily store in my house unless you know the structure of your house, because they're heavy. But it is definitely something to keep in mind of having something similar to that. There may be other ideas out there. I was really impressed when Kobe showed that. Was it 2 or 3 years ago?
Somewhere in here.
I was gonna test it last weekend, did not get around to testing it. So I'm not going to bless it. I trust Kobe. And in theory, I can see where it definitely worked. So, and I will test it against the Smith & Wesson 500. My wife loves using that pistol. I haven't shot it yet, she has.
Make sure you're holding on and pull that trigger.
It's a push and pull. You take one hand, you push outward while you pull back with the other one. And that way you don't. There are other ways to create and harden your areas. YouTube and Google are a great invention for that. You're going to need to harden those areas that you intend to fight from, because most houses are not going to provide enough cover for you to safely fight from behind. And for those of you that don't know, there's a difference between cover and concealment. Okay? Concealment means you can't see me. Cover means you can't shoot me. Does that make sense? I can stand behind that screen was lower, I could stand behind that screen and you couldn't see me. That's concealment. You can still shoot me though, right? So that's not covered. Have your predetermined fields of fire. And I should have stated this before I even started, and I apologize. Anytime I use a term that you're not familiar with, raise your hand, let me know, I'll describe it. These are all standard to me, but that doesn't mean they're standard to everybody. So, but have your predetermined fields of fire. So you know position A has this area. Position B has this area. Now, I don't know if you noticed that or not, but where my hands were, here and here, those fields of fire overlap. Okay? So you want that overlapping fields of fire. I'm not shooting all the way into A's, or vice versa, but they do overlap, so there's not a gap. Everyone, and once you have your defensive position set and your fields of fire set, you need to stay home. Okay? And what that means, any OU football fans in here by any chance, back from the 80s? Anybody familiar with the wishbone offense? No? Yes? Okay. Growing up in high school, our head coach was best friends with Barry Switzer in OU, so we had OU's playbook. A lot of people couldn't defend the wishbone offense because in football you're taught to go to the ball. Okay? With the wishbone offense, you forget about the ball. Because as soon as you go to the ball, that ball's going somewhere else. You take your man and you'll shut down the wishbone offense. Same with your defensive positions. Stay home, defend your position. Because the minute you move, you now have a gap in your defense. Does that make sense? You only move as an absolute last resort. Okay? Kobe's over there, and yeah, Kobe is getting ready to be taken completely out, and they're coming through the front door. Okay? And then you don't move everybody. Only enough to repel that particular assault. And you can get back to home. Because like I said, the minute you move, you've now created a gap. And a smart unit is going to take advantage of that. Perfect example, we were running urban op. I was actually an aggressor at this point. Our platoon was to go in to this building where we knew the known bad guys were, take out this one guy alive. I had the greatest plan in the world. Take my large force, move them in to the opposite side of the street. Couldn't get there without being seen. That was okay. Then I was going to have a small unit attack from the opposite end. Didn't work exactly as planned because the attack was supposed to be a fake. They were supposed to get pushed back and then we'd bring in the large force. But they didn't stay home. They saw the large force and they moved everybody to the large force. And next radio call I get is from Corporal Wolf, It's like, yeah, we're in the building. Okay? Because they didn't stay at home. I now had a small force that they had to contend with because we're now in the building, which opened the front door for us to come in. Had they stayed at home, it may not have went as that way. So, again, they didn't stick to what they should have done, which worked great for us, because now we got forces pushing them towards the middle, and we ended up the only platoon capturing the bad guy alive that we were supposed to. Everybody else shot the bad guy that was supposed to be taken alive. And when I say shot, we were using Sims rounds, and they are basically a paintball system for the M16, M4, and 9mm pistol. So when you got shot, you knew you got shot. So keep that in mind. You've got to stay home and defend your position unless you just have to move. Because if I'm attacking you, I'm going to exploit your weakness. And don't show everything you have on the first attack. Because my first attack may just be a reconnaissance attack. I want to see what you have and where you're at. Okay? Going back to that combat town situation with the three of us. I was eating lunch up on the upper second story of the building in a room when I started hearing the shots go off. I finished my lunch. I just sat there, finished my lunch, took my time. Okay? They were engaging with the other two who were running around. I finished my lunch, sat against the wall, stood up. Front of the window was here. I'm standing back in this room, and I'm looking down the side of the building where there's 10 Marines lined up, ready to go around their attack. They can't see me because I'm standing far enough back. And guess what I did? I just sat there and picked them off, and I didn't know where the shots were coming from. Because I didn't immediately react when stuff started happening. So they didn't even realize I existed. Because there was an unknown force to them inside this town. Anybody attacking you is going against an unknown force, most likely, unless they've been watching you for a period of time. Okay? Which could happen. So anytime you're in a defensive position, you should have an overwatch for anybody that is outside. Okay? Kobe has to go chop some more wood. He can't very well hold a firearm and an axe at the same time. So you need to have an overwatch. Decades ago, over in Europe, there was a group of Marines playing soccer. Some bad guy decided he was going to go shoot up the soccer game. We lost several Marines that day. Marine Corps adapted really quickly. Anytime there's a group of Marines gathered together for anything, we have our guardian angels. Which means there are Marines that are armed, ready to defend. Back to Marine Corps ball, anything. There are armed Marines ready to defend. Even in training scenarios where you don't have live ammunition, there are Marines that are armed, overwatching those that aren't. So, keep that in mind as part of your defense. You've got to have an overwatch. I'm a big fan you have LPs and OPs. Listening post and observation post. Anybody know the difference between the two?
When you hear it, when you see it,
Okay.
a lot of times both.
Yes. Mainly your LPs are at night. Okay? Because you can't see that good at night. Night vision, yeah. But again, depending on your terrain, that night vision may or may not work. We had at one time, the tow missile system had the best thermal optics out there. And they probably still do. Okay, to the point that if we can lose the weapon system, we couldn't lose the optics. Okay? And if we ever got overrun, we had an incendiary grenade to take care of the optics. It was not to be taken under any condition. And we were sitting there one morning, looking out over Pendleton. We were expecting an attack. And we got bleed over on the radio. Same call sign as me. Okay? Are you ready to punch through? And I'm like, we ain't moving, we're in a defensive position. And I tell the tow gunner, I'm like, look, even get on one of the optics myself. Didn't see squat. Okay? And we're like, get in position, get on the guns. And about 2 minutes later, a tank rolls up over a hill, 100 yards from us. Terrain. That thermal, one of the best out there, didn't do us squat because they knew the terrain and they utilized it to their advantage. So, thermals are great, don't get me wrong. Don't put 100% reliability in it because it can be worked around. But listening post, observation post, if you have a large enough group, I highly advise it. Okay? To let you know, hey, we've got someone coming in. Now, and same thing with observation posts. The downside to those posts, they're going to be pretty much out of the fight if it comes down to it. And why is that? What's that?
Exposed.
They're going to be on the opposite side of what you're shooting at. So they need to be ducked and covered. Or you might accidentally shoot them. Or if they're shooting towards you, it's called fratricide. Yes, sir.
Is there a distance that the LP or OP is from your, I guess, center, depending on your AO?
The further out that I can get them and still maintain communication with them, the better. I'm definitely, if there's any draws in the area that someone could use against me, I'm going to cover that area. If there are any blind spots, okay, I'm going to use that. Put one there. And I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit because I touched on it inadvertently. But communication is going to be key in your defensive positions, okay? Everybody knows what those little cheap Midlands radios are. You get like 2 for 30 bucks. They're great. We used them within our platoon when we were attacking a building because we could immediately communicate, hey, you know, first floor is clear. Okay. Boom. Now, downside to those, they're cheap, everybody has them. Right? So, if Dan can hear me, and he's on my side, and you're against me, you can probably hear me too if you have one, right? Not secure. So, they're good if it's an immediate, moving, fast situation where they don't even really have time to react to what you're saying. But as a defensive position, I don't like it. For my LPs and OPs, I'm old school on that. Okay? Military has what I prefer for those positions is what's called a TA1. Okay? It's a wired phone. You have military comm wire, it's 2 strands. You plug it in to the TA1. On one end, plug it into the other. And you can talk. And it can't be intercepted. Do you disagree?
Somebody slices it in the middle of your WD-1.
Then somebody wasn't doing their job. It could be. Yeah, but no. Anything can be hacked.
It's very difficult to intercept.
Yes. Yeah, and the nice thing about the TA1s, you can ring without ringing. Okay? It's got a little faceplate on it. So if I'm at command post and I want to talk to my listening post out there, I can click it, and that faceplate, a little bit of area on it will turn white. No noise from it. So it's not like ringing a TA312, which is also good, but they ring. Okay?
You can reduce the time.
You can. And it's not going to be easily hacked. Okay? Yes, anything can be hacked. You're absolutely right. So I'm a little old school if I've got LPs or OPs out there. Because I don't have money for fancy crypto gear for my radio communications. Toby might. Alan might. Okay? You know, there's other forms of communication because you also need to communicate within your defensive position. You know, you have visual, audible, and I'm sure you can think of many others. But you need to be able to communicate with everybody within your defensive position, even if it's a relay. You know, Kobe's out on my listening post. He radios Billy and says, "Hey, we got movement out here." And Billy hollers over at me, "Hey, we got movement out there." Okay? A couple different methods there, but we're all knowing what's going on. So, again, communications are vital in any situation. I'm sure there's a lot of lies in here that say men don't communicate enough. I know mine do. Am I wrong? Did not one person agree with me on that?
I think you might have showed up.
Okay. Yeah. Also, you need to know avenues of approach that your enemy is most likely going to come in at. Okay? And that's going to depend on the attacking force. Are they motorized or are they on foot? And again, on your terrain. So, if you are down in some of the rocky, hilly places in Missouri, even where a 4x4 can't go, or I mean 4x4, four-wheeler. So there's places in Missouri, four-wheeler has a hard time. Then any motorized is probably gonna be on the road, okay? Now, you can land an airplane at my cousin's, couldn't you? Okay. It's a short runway, but you could.
You're playing live today.
So, again, terrain plays a factor, but you need to know the avenues of approach they're gonna most likely come in at. You can create barriers and obstacles to slow them down. With a determined force, that's all you're gonna do is slow them down. They're not gonna stop. They're gonna find a way around that, and they're gonna keep coming if they're determined enough. But if you slow them down, and you gotta fill the fire on them, now you're making a bad day for them. So take that into consideration in your defensive plan. And again, if you're in a suburban area, this all still plays into effect. The obstacles are just different. Their cover and concealment is a house next door versus a rock outcropping over there. Okay? So don't get locked into thinking, well, I need to be out in the boonies. If you don't have that option, they just have different avenues of approach that they may come at you. Are they coming up the alley? Are they coming down the main street? Are they coming between the houses across from you? Where would they come from? And believe it or not, in our Joplin suburban, I mean, it's not urban, obviously. I've got a place for listening post and observation post in the middle of Joplin. Okay? And it gives me high ground too, which I like. So, you have to adapt to what you have available. Also, funnel them. Okay? Get them to go where you want them to go. If I want them here, and create obstacles and barriers, but give them that nice lane to make them think, oh, this is easy. They know we're coming, but they left this open, so I'm going to take this opportunity. And what have you done? You've lured them right in to where you want them. I'm a big fan of funneling. Again, knowing the Marine Corps, the way we operate, I was on an op force, urban environment, they were on patrol. Normally in an ambush, you take out the middle of the patrol. Normally. Took out the first guy, shot him in the leg. Okay? They were smart enough not to go after him. He's shot in the leg. He's not dead. And they were smart enough to go. But they were going to flank me. And guess what I had waiting for them when they decided to flank me? I had a small force, and they ran right into an ambush. And there was an explicit sentence enhancer. It's Bowman. So, they realized they'd been set up. same combat town, different day, different scenario. I wanted them down in this draw. There was a bridge there. One side was a draw, dry. The other side was nasty, mucky mess. Probably at least waist deep. The end of that draw, nice concealment area. I set up a fake IED on the bridge. They're not going anywhere near that IED, but they got to get into the town. They got two choices. No one wanted to go for a swim that day, and I was counting on that. So when they went in that draw, again, they were sitting ducks. I funneled them where I wanted them. And again, a lot of that because I knew how they would react, because I knew their playbook. Now, this is the challenging part. We don't know what we're going up against, okay? We don't necessarily know their playbook, because it could be a trained force. Trained force, you can study. How does the Army do things? Which they do things differently than the Marines. You know, you can study the Army maneuvers and tactics, you can study Marine maneuvers and tactics. You can't study a group of untrained people's tactics, which makes it more challenging than a trained. Because you don't know what they're going to do. But if you study the others, it will give you some knowledge to be able to how to read what they might be thinking and react before they can do it. But a lot of this is going to be homework and a progression in your defense tactics. Early warning devices, you've got tripwires. They've got commercial ones like Fifth Third, which you can use shotgun primer, and they even have flashbangs. I hate flashbangs, I'll tell you that right now. Okay?
You hate them on defense, you hate them as an offensive person?
I hate them as an offense person.
Those are good on the defense.
They are. Because it is a really bright light and a really loud noise. And it's going to jar you for a minute or two. Flip side, well, we'll get that in. I just had that card in my hand. You've also got cameras. Cameras are great. Cameras are going to depend on whether or not you have electricity to be able to receive them. Okay? At first, you may have a solar setup that can keep you charged. I don't know, this last week, I don't know how much charge you get out of your solar setup. I don't know, I'm not a solar expert.
Pretty light.
So, you know, they have the default downside to it. Problem with tripwires, they are audible and they're loud. And the second I trip one off, you know I'm there, and I know you know I'm there. Yes, ma'am.
It's 53rd.
Fifth Third is a brand. Yes. I've got two options at that point. Okay? At that point, you know I'm there. I can go at you full force, or I can fall back. Come back in 2 or 3 days knowing you have tripwire set up. And be more cautious. I don't know which one I would do until I trip that water, personally. So, I know if I have a tripwire set up and someone trips it, everybody is immediately up and on the defense. And I guarantee you I will have LPs and OPs out for the next 2 weeks. Because my guess, if I'm the aggressor, and I trip a wire, you have something I want. And I'm gonna come back and get it. Okay? That's the way I think. But it's gonna be on my terms. And I'm patient. Okay? A couple years ago, somebody had mentioned they have a lot of blackberry bushes as part of their defense, and they wasn't that concerned with that area. That's where I'm going. I am going to the most inhospitable place around there because you don't expect me there. Okay? So, great barriers, natural barrier, but don't think everybody is sane. There are crazy people out there like me, and I'm gonna go where you least expect me. So, they're scratches. Who hasn't picked blackberries? Okay? They heal. Don't want them, but if I think you have something I want, I am going to do everything I can to get that. And this is, I don't want you to think I'm crazy. My wife will say that I am. However, you need to think along those lines when you're setting up your defense. If I really wanted to get into this place, my defensive position, how would I do it? If you know, if I knew you were sitting on something I really, really wanted, how would I go into my defensive position? Because somebody else will think that way. Drones, they're becoming more popular. You can see bird's eye view. I personally, and again, this is a personal opinion, not a fan of drones. Because I might not know Allen has a place a mile away. Okay, may not even know it exists. Until I see that drone flying.
This is good.
Huh?
That's good.
Until I see that drone,
But you may not know where it came from.
may not, but I know somewhere close is something. I don't know the exact range on them, but they're not too far, not out of walking distance. Personal opinion, okay? They have a lot of advantages. I'm not a fan, again, personally, because you give away your position when somebody didn't even know you existed.
I see them as a use of, you got some perimeter alarms. Let's say you got significant acreage. You got some perimeter alarms to tell somebody's going across your fence or whatever. You can send out a drone to check and see is that a deer out there that triggered my alarm, or is it a group of two-legged or four-legged critters that need to be dealt with?
Good point. And that goes back to your tripwires as well. What tripped your wire?
Around here,
Was it a person? Was it a deer? Was it a bobcat? What was it? And again, you got a flashbang set up, I could be half a mile away and probably hear that flashbang go off. Didn't know you existed until that deer just ran through your wire. And now, my ears perked up, what's over that way? They have their advantages, they have their disadvantages, just be aware of both. Because we could probably sit here all night and fill this board with pros and cons of every other. But just keep that in mind.
You might have some things in your inventory that you don't employ, but who the person is advanced. You might say it until a little bit later on.
If I was setting flashbangs, I'd set it much closer to my defensive position. Okay? Because we use flashbangs to enter a building, because it is going to stun somebody and gives you time to get in.
How far away from them should you be if you're gonna use them?
That's gonna be, a situation's gonna dictate your defensive position. I want them out far enough that they don't rock my world too. When somebody trips them. But then again, I don't want them out too far to where a stray dog is gonna trip. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I don't,
But how far, I want to make sure I'm away from it.
What's the explosive rate?
Depends on the flashbang.
yeah, I would say optimal, if you can get away with it 25 yards.
Are you talking
Okay.
about throwing it, or are you talking about it being set off by a tripwire?
Either.
So if you
Either.
throw it, then you definitely want to look away. Look your ears.
I would say probably 15 to 25 yards if you can get that far out. Because remember, if you're inside a building, there's percussion inside that building. And there were some videos I've watched where they have detonated a grenade, regular standard percussion grenade inside a covered room, like just a house. It lifted the roof up. Because the percussion is that strong. Flashbang ain't that strong, but it's gonna be amplified if any of it does get into the house. So we talked about funneling our perimeter area. Again, you can funnel inside your house, okay? Like I said, no gentleman had a beautiful, beautiful sliding glass door out on his patio. It's just saying, come in. Because, I mean, once those patio doors aren't hard to break, right? That's a weak spot. Everybody agree? Or is it? It looks like a weak spot.
Would be a better funnel.
Exactly. A fatal funnel. And what a fatal funnel is real simple. It is where you have a kill zone set up that the aggressors must go through to get into you. So you're funneling them into that fatal kill area. This is doorways, okay? That's why if I was an aggressor, I would not go through the front door or the back door. Because I know, or any door for that matter, because that is a fatal funnel. I don't like them. That is my last option to go into a room. I'm gonna go through a window. Okay? I know someone's got a beautiful big window on their front porch. Okay? weak spot, right? Or a kill zone. It's what you make of that. So, now, the window on the front porch, even a train unit is probably gonna eye that over, going, we can get through there quickly. But it's still a fatal funnel. And I guarantee you, not all of them, if the fence is set up properly, are gonna make it through that window in good shape. So find your weak spots. Your weak spot may become a strong point if you make it that. Again, that's how you set up your defensive plan. And then the question that you have to really ask yourself, okay, your defensive position, is this your final stand, or do you have somewhere to fall back to should it get too nasty and it looks like you're gonna lose the defensive position? Because, again, that's going to depend a lot on your defensive plan. If it's your final stand, you don't need a plan for regress. If you have a fallback position, you need to have a plan for regress. Because maybe you do have an alternate location you can go to, and this ain't gonna be the day that we win. I will tell you this, like I tell my nieces, if you ever have to fight like you're the third monkey on the ramp to Noah's Ark, and it's starting to rain. Okay? And that sounds simple, but you need to start your defense with that attitude.
Is there any violence in action?
So, it is something that you need to think about. And again, this is basically defensive 101, because you can see my scrap paper over there. I made some nice neat notes, and then I was going back through them, and every one of these areas could take a tangent. I can go off on a tangent on just LPs and OPs. I can go off on a tangent at just about challenging passwords. If we had 8 hours, we might be able to get a really good understanding of everything. We don't have 8 hours. But, like anything, it's what you put into it is what you're gonna get out of it. And these are some ideas to think about in developing your defense plan, because I can't tell this gentleman he needs to do exactly this, this, and this, because I know nothing about this gentleman's defensive position. And no offense, I don't care to know. Billy's I know a little bit about. Okay? Billy and I have been friends for several years now. I know his family, know where he lives. I can give him advice. Dan, can't tell you anything. You know, Alan, Kobe. Kobe I know a little bit about because he gives it out every once in a while. Inadvertently. But, and then keep your defense plan just to your defensive team. Okay? No one else needs to know about your defense plan. I shared a little bit with you about having common phrases, but like I said, you would think in a normal conversation, get someone in my family to use the phrase, you wouldn't think twice about it, because Billy didn't even think twice about it, he's known me. And known my boys and my wife. And he's like, didn't have a clue. So, yeah. But only a need to know basis on your defense plan. You can hire, I'm sure, people to come out and give you a perfectly laid out defense plan. But problem with that, what's that?
Now, they know it.
Exactly. Now they know it, okay? Everyone in this room is smart enough to develop a defense plan of their own and think, okay? Being a firearms instructor, I teach CCW, and I tell my students, same thing, I'll tell you, visualize it actually happening, okay, ahead of time. Because I got news for you, in a personal defense situation, when it's happening, is not the time to be thinking about what you're gonna do. You have to have thought about it ahead of time. And again, there are probably, this gentleman here could probably spend the rest of next year thinking of different ways someone could attack his position. Everybody in this room could probably think about it. What is the most feasible? What's the most likely? What's the most unlikely? Because guess what? There are people that are like me out there, and I'm going to come at you in the most unlikely method. I'm going to get as closest to you as I possibly can before you realize that I'm correct in most situations. Because that's how the bad guy comes at you in the parking lot. Okay? He ain't 25 yards away running at you with a knife. Not typically, unless they're just whacked out. They're gonna say, hey, you got a light, bud? And I just closed a whole bunch of distance right there. So a force may do that as well. They may spend a small team in to see what you have. Don't show your whole hand at the first incursion, okay? If you have 3 or 4 guys coming at you, you should be able to easily repel with 1 or 2. I don't care if you have 20 in there. You only show them what you need to repel that attack. Because now I know you've got 20 guys in there, I'm coming back with 60. Okay? If I think you only got 2 in there, my 10's plenty enough, right? So, that's something to think about. Don't show your hand any more than you have to. Know your abilities. Are you better with a rifle? Are you better with a pistol? Are you better with a shotgun? Improvised explosives, they're a real thing. I mean, let's face it, we're in a new millennium. Improvised explosives. I'm sure there's someone in here that can probably rig them pretty dang decent. Don't care to know who you are, but what is your ability? Do you need to hit the range? You know, again, if I was out at my cousin's defending his, I'd be shooting at a 300 to 500 yard range on a regular basis. And there's only one of those around that I know of. And I was actually joining that club just so I could shoot their 500 yard range on a regular basis. Because that easily 500 yards. Most people can't shoot 500 yards effectively. Anybody put a round down 500 yards, but hit their target, most people can't. Urban environment, or a lot of the woods around here, 25 yards is all you need. Yeah. Pistols are effective at 25 yards if you have the right pistol. Some pistols, they're not that good at 25 yards. Let's face it, they're not designed for 25 yards. They're designed for personal defense. Okay? Shotguns. Another key factor to keep in mind is fratricide. I mentioned that with your listening post. But if someone breaks through into your defensive position, you do have to be concerned with fratricide. Because now they're in, and there's probably friendlies on the other side of them. So if you miss, where's that ground going? And it will go through a wall. We've already established that. But what's on the other side of that wall? Again, when we ended up coming into, that was our biggest concern, and we actually had to slow up just so we didn't commit fratricide. Are there any questions over this broad topic that I have touched on tonight? Yes, ma'am.
The Fifth Third, what is that exactly?
They sell tripwires, and you can get those with 12 gauge primer or with flashbang setups.
Is it 5TH?
It's actually FIF.
That's TH. Okay, because when I
Yeah.
looked it up, it came up with the back.
I'll put
just
a
saying.
link on, I'll put a number of links, but I'll include that link because
Okay,
I bought a number of their
yeah.
products.
Third, I'm assuming that's a word too. Yeah, I typed in 5TH3RD, it came up as a bang.
Oh, no, it's all spelled out. Yes, ma'am.
Flashbang, are they lethal?
Yes, they are.
Are they not?
Legal.
Are they lethal? What range do they cover?
What range?
Yeah, one explosion, you know, what?
Well, it's,
They're more of a concussion.
Both,
What?
actually.
Spell the word.
What is-
it's basically creating a really bright flash and a really loud noise.
So it's
That's
not
all.
lethal.
Not lethal.
It's not lethal.
Okay.
Oh, I think it said legal.
Is it legal?
Yes, it is legal.
Okay.
It is not legal. Now, if you're right on top of it, when it goes off, it could very possibly cause long-term damage. Because it is extremely loud and it is very bright. So if you're on top of it when it goes off, it very well could.
That's too small.
Yeah, 'cause it came up as a bang.
Right, larger.
We'll be putting the links, a bunch of links on the website, Facebook, and the website, preppernet.net.
This session is recording where you go from, YouTube.
Yeah, this is recorded, we'll go on YouTube, usually takes about 2 weeks to get it edited and that kind of thing. Other questions?
It'll probably take about 4 weeks to try to clean this up so don't scare everybody.
Thanks, Melvin, I appreciate it very much. Good job. The, reminds me, I want you to comment on this just for a second, but, when I taught this a couple of years ago, and I probably divulged much too much information at that point in time. However, I've changed all that.
But one of the things that I talked about, and one of the things you corrected me on, is a great idea. I don't want you to talk about this, but I talked about on my property, I have a long driveway, and I selected trees that I would drop in the driveway to stop vehicles from coming in. He brought up an alternate kind of counter idea to that. I'll talk about that for a minute.
The issue that I saw with dropping trees in the driveway to prevent someone from coming in, you've also prevented yourself from driving out. Okay? To me, if I had a long driveway and I had the time, I would set up a metal channel or a pipe, concrete it in so you can drive over it normally. But I would have holes drilled in that so I could stick some rebar in there if I wanted to prevent someone from coming in. Because it's either gonna hit their oil pan or their tires. I would create another way that I could still be able to get out. It's hard to move a big tree once you drop it. Okay? So you gotta think, before you set up any obstacle, can I maneuver around it as well? Because you may have to maneuver around it. And again, going down a rabbit hole, I have my defensive position. I've met an overwhelming size of trained force. I'm forced out of my position. Now I gotta maneuver outside of my safe zone to repel this attacking force. Hopefully I don't have to, but it could be an option. Again, going down a rabbit hole. We all like to think that we can stay there, but look at what happened at the Alamo. It didn't work out too well, because they had no place to maneuver outside of.
One of the things you mentioned to me when I mentioned this scenario was you thought it might, depending on the circumstances, be better to have, let's say you have a pickup truck with 10 people in it coming at you.
Yeah.
And if they come to a tree that's in the road, what do? They get out and they scatter, and you've got targets all over the place that you've got to try to hit. Whereas if they stay in that pickup truck coming at you,
I'm slip sensitive, but yes.
you've got a smaller target that you can take out. That was kind of the point that I remember.
And that is a good point. And I'd forgotten that. I'm slip sensitive. But yeah, you've just scattered. You had an isolated target with multiple targets, and now you have multiple targets that are confined. You've defunnelized them essentially. I talked about funneling them. Well, funneling them is getting them all, just think of a funnel. Whatever you use a funnel for, you're taking a large amount and you're putting it in and you're getting it all into one little area. And that's what you want to do. You don't want to create anything that's going to make them, you don't want to pour the funnel in from the small end.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate it. I wanted to talk about that because that was one of the things that kind of blew my mind when you talked to me about it last time. So good, thank you. Our last 30 minutes, we're going to have Dan come up. Dan is a Florida transplant, and ever since he came up here from Florida, he has been active in our group, and I appreciate him. He's going to talk to us. He has been putting together and experimenting with hydroponics, and so I've asked him to come in and share a quick presentation on that while he gets his microphone on and gets ready. You stealing my phone? Yeah, that's my phone. Okay, I will get your presentation going and get you started on that here in just a second.
Okay, can you hear me all right? Oh, way too much. Okay. Yeah, I know, it's kind of an odd thing, but I have my reasons. Yeah, when I got out here, one of the first things I realized, you guys got the same state income tax. 37 years, never paid the state income tax. I'm like, dang, what? There's a lot of reasons why I transplanted. I have a 19-month-old grandson in Denver, so I'm a lot closer. I can shoot over to Denver and spend time with him. Big reason. All right, hydroponics. I'm a novice. I've been playing around with this and different things for a few years. So, got some experience. Is that better? Can you hear me back there?
Yeah, you turned it off.
All right. All right, well, I'll just talk loud. No. Okay. I coach soccer for youth kids, so I'm used to yelling at little kids across the field, so I can project a little bit. You can hear me back there, sir? Until this is good. So, hydroponics. So, I've been playing around with it for a few years. I kind of consider myself a novice. My wife and us, we were walking through a home and garden show 12 or so years ago. She saw this tower garden, my Juice Plus, said, oh, we gotta have one. We'll just grow some fresh food in the backyard. So we got one, so I was playing with it. It's basically a recirculating aeroponic system. I'll get to what all that means later on. And we'll try to go through this fairly quickly. But I've played with that, had a couple of systems in the backyard. We grew, tomatoes, cucumbers easily there, different things. I think before you get and have stuff outside in the summer, you can set your watch by the rainstorms that roll through the afternoon. And that kind of always complicates the system a little bit. So these things happen and you learn what to adjust with it. So what is hydroponics? It's basically growing plants in a soilless medium where the plants get their nutrients from the water. The nutrients are put into the water, and that's how they grow. So, let's see. No, right. Undecided. Okay. All right, so it's been around. Hydroponics is nothing new. It's been a long time. So, 1st century AD, Roman Emperor Tiberius, he loves his cucumbers. He wants them in the off season. So, I looked at my first guy over here. I want you to grow me some cucumbers this winter. You don't do it, so you're fed to the lines. I turn to the next guy and see what he comes up with. So they actually were growing cucumbers in the off season in a greenhouse 1 AD. So hydroponics has been around for a few years. Different things going through it. And recently, there's been a lot more being done to it in the last several years. It's been around. You can have hydroponics anywhere from a small scale to a very large commercial scale. And when you're doing stuff in a large commercial, you go vertical. And I can do that in my home like a vertical. We can have stuff here with our water, our system, and have stuff, cucumbers going to the ceiling, or tomatoes. You just need to be able to get up there and get them. Easy enough to do. How do you want to do it? So you can grow anything from, I can take a quart jar, candy jar, and grow cucumbers in that, or probably grow cucumbers if I grow like leafy greens. Leafy greens are real good with that. So you can grow plants in a quart jar. That's all you need, static. Or you can have a multi-million-dollar complex system for hydroponics. What do you want to do? So it shows you that it has a lot of flexibility that you can do with it. So let's see. Some of the advantages. So, okay, this thing quite come out good. So, again, a lot more flexibility. Growing season. I can grow indoors. I can grow outdoors. They're growing commercially cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers in Norway during the dead of winter. Inside. You can do that. You can do that year round. I can have stuff spaced together. So I can come up, and I guess when I get to it, I can have an area like this, and I can have 60 plants growing in it. Lettuces, herbs, fresh basils. During the winter, you can have fresh basil year round. Fresh lettuces, the leafy green stuff. What do you like? You can have cucumbers year round, tomatoes year round. Grow it indoors, outdoors. So it's controlled. You don't have the pests that you get from the dirt. We all know there's things there for that. Okay. No weeding or herbicides to deal with. Who doesn't want to have to go, crawl around and weed? You can manipulate the nutrient content. So when it is time for the growth stage, I can have one set of nutrients going. I can then change that scale as they go into the bloom stage and the flowering stage and the fruiting stage. I can change those level of nutrients. You can learn to deal with that. It's a lot easier. It can be less work than growing a garden. Now, some of the disadvantages, it does take some time and money to set up. There's some money involved in setting that up. You have maintenance. You will spend some time maintaining the system. Again, it's what you want to put into it, how large, how complex is your system. Growing stuff in a mason jar, pretty simple. Having this recirculating system, I got to change that water out every 3 to 4 weeks. If it's a larger system, I might change it out a lot sooner. Replacing components. If you've got recirculating pumps, all your plumbing, different things like that, you got to replace. Maintenance is a key. You want to keep things sort of clean. So if you get certain problems, you want to pull things apart, clean it, and put it back. How do you design your system when you're doing that will play into it. All right, and I'm kind of hitting some of these things, and I want to get to certain things at the end. So these things are some of the advantages you got. And again, one of the other advantages that to get into is I don't need to be so particular with the temperature because plants are more concerned with the water temperature growing than they are the air temperature. So you can get your water, you have this in your garage, you got a system going, you can put a fish tank heater in the water, heat the water up enough to the right temperature the plant likes, they'll grow. Or you can put a system to cool the water during the summer if you have it out in the greenhouse. You can also, one of the advantages, if you're concerned about pollutants coming from the atmosphere, from stuff that's been dumped in the atmosphere onto your garden, you have it in a greenhouse, you don't have that atmosphere coming down onto your plants you're growing. You can do all this in a greenhouse. You can set up and grow in an apartment. You can stick it in your bedroom closet with grow lights and grow plants. And no one's ever know you got it. So you can be very stealthy with it. You can have it out. You can have a large system out in the yard, in the greenhouse. So a lot of flexibility. That's the one nice thing about it. You can do is large scale, small scale, where you want to do it, how you want to do it. It will play in. You can work and design a system to do that. All right. So basically, you have a reservoir tank.
I'm actually literally clicking for you. I don't know if your clicker's working. When you try to
All right,
click
go
it.
back.
Oh, yeah.
Go back about 4 or 5 slides. All right, so your components. You're going to have a reservoir tank, which is where your nutrients are at. All right. So you're going to have the reservoir tank. That's what holds your water, your nutrients. A growing area. How big of an area do you need? I guess if you're going to grow, if you want to grow something indoors in a bedroom or closet, you can do it. I would just highly recommend that you put some sort of tub there, especially if you're on a second or third floor apartment. You lose 15, 20 gallons of water that's downstairs. Not as good. Your neighbor may not appreciate it. The landlord won't like it. You can get a kiddie pool and put a system in a kiddie pool that you have going vertical to grow. Gives you that flexibility again where you're growing at. Medium. So you need a substrate that you're growing in that is neutral, that won't have a chemical reaction with the nutrients you're using. What you're going to do. Try this here. Okay. You actually don't want to cause a reaction. It's going to allow air and moisture to go through. I've used something called Rapid Rooter. You can use rock wool. There's things people on YouTube show you take the pool noodle, which is going to be really cheap, and you can cut and slice a certain way and get it in the hole, and you can put your seeds in there and grow with pool noodle. I've never tried it, but that's how you do it. So flexibility. Neck cups. They're basically a small cup of varying sizes, about 1 inch, all the way up, I've seen 6, 8-inch cups, where you can put your like rock wool in, your rapid rooter planks, that I really like a lot of for using for my medium to start the plants growing. I've used 3-inch neck cups where I've started stuff in a small 1-inch cube, and then I'll take tomato plants or cucumbers and I'll drop them in the neck cup, and it will grow there. I got more room for those roots to grow out as the plants are growing. You can get systems that got 4-inch, 6-inch neck cups. You can put them in and get more room for those roots to expand.
Put it underneath the screen back towards the computer.
Under neck cups? I'm going this way. Ah, there it is. Okay. No, wrong way. All right. Grow lights. So if you're growing indoors, you want some grow lights. Now there's a lot of different grow types of grow lights. I've got a bunch listed there. My handouts, I've got a lot more of those in there. Makes a difference. LED grow lights are really big right now. Low energy, don't produce heat. But if you want heat, you can get grow lights that will produce a lot of heat. So you have that variability. Again, if you're growing indoors, you want grow lights. Timers, I have systems of mechanical timers I like. So I have a system I've got my pump running every 15 minutes, every hour. So on 15, off 45. I use these counters and give me 15-minute increments. I do that 24/7. My grow lights are on for about 16 hours a day. Give the plants about 8 hours of sleep. You know, it's dark, they need to sleep too, so you gotta give them a little bit of time to sleep. They need that darkness. But you can do 16 hours. You can tailor that to what you want and the plants are growing. Pump to help circulate the water. If you're using a circulating system, sometimes you need a pump, you need to move water. Air pump. Plants need oxygen into water to help them breathe. You know, like you can drown the plant if you get full of water. There's too much water in there, and you drown the roots, and they can't breathe, they'll drown. So you want to oxygenate the water, you want to give them a chance to breathe. Something to keep in mind. There's different ways of doing it. There are stones and a way to do it. So you're going to need tubing, fittings, filters. Other tools that are useful, meters and such. You want to check the pH of the water. You want to check the how many parts per million of certain chemicals in it. You can do all that. Again, this is the maintenance and maintaining the system. You can make it where you can be checking the water every day, every week, doing it, or you can do the KISS principles. What I like to do is just I mix my nutrients up, put it in the system, and then it's been through. It makes me go drain the water out, put some more in, keep running with it, because I don't have time to go mess with doing all this other stuff all the time. You can do that. I do that routinely. I've got the meters. I really don't always use it. I just found it works. It can be very unforgiving. It can be very forgiving. Unforgiving, you lose power for a day, and the plants don't really like that because they're not getting the oxygen, or they're drowning, or they're not getting circulation. Depending on the system, depending on the system you're running to, how that will do. All right. So there's lots of different types of systems out here. So, can't read that. I want it. So there's three major types of systems. You have a true hydroponic system, which has methods no substrate, like the deep water culture, nutrient film technique, recirculate, which reuses the water, or drain to waste. You use the nutrient water once, you can let it go. To me, that's kind of wasteful, but that's the system. So those are your three major types. Yes, that are out there, the ones that can do the stuff. All right, so I want to spend a few minutes talking about the system here, cracking. From a standpoint of preparedness for low-cost entry, this is a great system to use. Crankey's from a university professor out in Hawaii who really put some of this together. How can we have something for people in lands where they don't have much money, they don't have power, but they still need to be able to grow plants. It's basically a passive system. And what he realized, and he documented, especially this works really well with greens. I've used this system to grow a lot of I have done cucumbers and tomatoes using this system. It does work, but leafy greens are best. I'll talk about that and then other stuff I do with this. So when you get your little seedling going, got little roots out the bottom, you get your net cup, you put it in the container, and you have your water level such that your net cup sits down. It's right there at the base of it. So the bottom part of that net cup and that substrate you're using is then right there in the water. So as the plant starts to grow, well, the plant grows, water evaporates. So the water starts going down and the roots are going down. Water evaporates, the root keeps going down, they're in the water, the water's going down. The plant's growing. The plant gets the oxygen from that air gap between the bottom of the net cup and around it to the water wall. That's how the plants get this oxygen it needs. That's where you start at the bottom. So you even get some from the side of the net cup prior to that standpoint. So you can take a mason jar, cover it so you don't want the light in to turn it into algae. You can grow. I've grown stuff in mason jars. I've taken 3-gallon Rubbermaid little totes and put holes in the top. I've had 9 plants growing. I've had a whole setup going. We're growing leafy greens on the grow lights for all year. Worked great. Low maintenance. You put the water in, 30 days later, I'm out there cutting off those green stuff to go eat. Easy enough. Really simple system. No power needed, so as long as you have light, I'm using grow lights because I was doing this in Florida and wanted to kind of keep rain from dumping on it. But in the back part of the yard we were growing, I had tomatoes out there. Results were okay. Cucumbers did good for a while. They did good. I had a 27-gallon tote, 3 big holes in it, 3-inch net cups, and cucumbers were on it. The problem in Florida is doing it out in the open environment. When it rains, all that water goes into your tote. You expand, your tote gets expanded, and your nutrient mix is all mixed up. You basically kind of clean it all out. And when it's doing it every other afternoon or every afternoon, okay, this is not going to work. But it is doable. You can do it. So that's why from a preparedness standpoint, this is the way you can do this with a grow light. You can put this up in your closet. No one even knows that you got stuff growing. You know, down in a bunker, greenhouse, back bedroom, quiet. No one knows you don't have a pump running or anything else. You just need a light source. Or you can do it outside on a porch and kind of grow in your balcony of your apartment. Gives you that a lot of flexibility, but it's a good system. It's really good. Like I said, I've grown lettuce, arugula, spinach, grow herbs, basil, oregano, stuff like that. You have it year round by using a system like this. That's one thing that I like about this system. Is it's low entry, easy enough to learn to play with, to go through. All right, other systems. Nutrient film technique, so it's basically water's running along the surface, the plant comes down, the roots get in this film, it's always running. So it's always got moving water going across the plant roots, keeps them going. Aeroponics is basically moving air with low pressure, water, low pressure, high pressure across the roots and letting it flow down over. An aeroponic tower is like the Juice Plus tower garden where it's doing that. I can have a system blowing water up from the bottom to it. The system's out there. You can take, your sprinkler head that sprays out 360. I can put that down the bottom of the tote, a 5-gallon bucket on a pump, put my plants on top and have that water blowing up on it, circulate nutrients onto the roots and grow that way. That's the neat thing about this. There's lots of different mythologies to go look at. Ebb and flow, wicking, top drip system, drip tower, a vertical garden, which is basically having different layers where you have stuff growing. So I know I'm kind of going through this fast and we have a limited time. vertical garden. This is something I've done, hope it shows a little bit here. Now, I took this, cobbled this together last Christmas, some stuff I had sitting around the garage for things I bought. How many people are familiar with Jack Spirito and the Survival Podcast? On his YouTube channel, he put this together. He played around a lot with it. Beginning of 2020, he actually took a system like this he built a lot bigger down to Mother Earth News Fair and debuted it down there. So, what I have here, this one. Alright. So I got a 17-gallon tote here, reservoir. This is like an 18 by 3 or so metal rack that I sit around. I got a pump in here. I had sized it for about 5 foot ahead, 6 foot ahead, just to make sure I got enough pipe on it. It comes out, moves the water up, drops down to here, where I've got this tote. These 2 totes here, you know those kind of ones you buy on the hardware store for doing concrete and crap like that in? Yeah, I use that. Some plastic cardboard basically with neck cups in it. Run through here, so the water drops in here. I've got a bulkhead at the bottom that comes down, drops the water in here. I got a return over here, drop it down in the pump circuits. I got some timers over here, so every 15 minutes, the water circuits. I've got it set up down here, you can't see it, it's not there, but I have a T where the water comes out, probably comes out, control it. They put oxygen in the water, plus as it goes here to here, oxygen. Now with this system, what I've done too, is here at my bulkhead fittings, I have different pieces of pipe that are different heights. So I start out with the plants that are really small with a little bit of roots. I keep it high, so I keep the water deep. As the plants get larger, I just reach in, pull that pipe out, put another one in. As they go, so they go shorter and shorter, so the water gets shallower and shallower. So what I'm doing, basically, I'm going to circulate the system. I might call it ebb and flow, I'm moving the water around. And when I'm not running the system, it's static, I've got the crack key system runs on the plants are poised in water, the roots are, poised in water to grow. My grow lights here, they're around for about 14, 16 hours a day, depending on when I want to run that. So I put this whole system together, I ran it, and the picture's not the best, you can see some of the plants here. This is about 4 to 5 weeks here, how big they were at that point, where they come a little bit lower here. These are newer ones, these are ones that have been around for a while. Growing. Inside, in a little room in my house. So it grows very well. So this shows you what you can do. So you can vertically, and I can do something up here from on to. Like that starts up here, then lights up here. So you can have it taller. Again, it's what you want to make of it, what you have time to do, what you want, you can probably do.
How much would it cost somebody to put that system together? $100, $500?
Probably a couple hundred. Your expenses are going to be the pump. So, okay, it was probably $50 for a pump. That metal rack can be a little more expensive, depends on how big you make it. You can get the 2 by 4 foot of these things. You can get trays that are designed for these kind of systems. They're going to be very expensive. You can go spend $15 and buy a couple concrete trays. The bulkheads are going to cost a little bit because you're going to get the right bulkheads to seal. Especially these trays of concrete where you've got the ribs underneath. When you go to drill your hole, don't drill through a rib. Because you then got to seal it. From personal experience, I drilled from the top down and realized what I did. So be thoughtful on that. And then you have to tube. Now, where does it get to the expense? Nutrients. You need to have good nutrients. So I've got in here, again, and the grow lights, those Brianna grow lights, you can find them on Amazon. They're good lights. I would say for what you're getting, they are designed for grow lights. You can go into, you can find online lots of different systems that will allow you to do different things. Again, you can use a 5-gallon bucket to grow stuff in. I've done that with crab cane. 5-gallon bucket, put a 3-inch hole in the top, drop a neck cup in there, drop my rapid reader plug in there with some light expanding clay pellets around it, and grow. So you can grow it that way. So you can grow a variety of plants. There are people out there, YouTube full of lots of videos, go research. People are growing potatoes, root crops, with hydroponics. A lot more involved, starting out, keep it simple. The one thing I put in here, where do I have that? Well, back on the nutrients. One thing I've come across and I use is Master Blend. It's a 4-18-38 combo fertilizer kit. It's a dry powder, 3 different components. It's a 2-2-1 system. And one of the components is actually Epsom salt. But I've gone out and I just checked. You can get a 25-pound kit on Amazon for $60. All right, so you get your 3 parts. That's 10, 10, and 5. And by mixing that, what I've shown here, the 25-pound kit will yield almost 1,900 gallons of nutrient. That works out to about 3 cents a gallon. Your nutrient mix. That's a powder. You put it into a bucket with a sealed lid, it will last a long time. Now, if you have a system, let's say you're going through maybe 100 gallons of nutrient a month, that's 18 months. That's a year and a half. For $60, it's stuff to feed your plants to grow. Depends how much you're using, how long that will last. And I've got a kit I'm using now, and I've got 2 25-pound kits put to the side. So I've never gone right out of nutrients for a long time. This summer it was $60. I checked right before our meeting, it was $60 still for a 25-pound kit. You can get a 2.5-pound kit. It will vary how much you want to go. You can get, and I'm using a powder. You can use a liquid fertilizer. So there are multiple hydroponic stores around. There's a couple here in town. I know there's one down in Branson West. I'm sure there's some over in Joplin. So you can look. They will show you all the different things in there, all the different types of nutrients, lots of different types of nutrients and systems for how you want to tailor it. You know, I'm not sure what you, I don't really want to be toting around these gallon jugs and the money you want from them. Now, if you want to keep some of the water, you can do it.
What, the city chlorinated water, how does that affect?
I'd stay away from it if you can. Or you let the water sit there out for a day or so before you start using it. That's what I did before. I just let it air out.
Okay.
Not the best thing. Now, can you just use it? Yeah, that's not the best thing. Just don't use it. So they'll tell you to stay away from it. On that, and I got the grow lights in here too. That put the cost in the very. You get 2 foot. I get a 6-pack of 2-foot balls, where I can get a package of 4-foot balls. I got that system set with 2-foot balls. And I got a daisy chain. So I've got this set up so I can have the bottom set of lights on or the top set of lights on. They're both set. They both go the same timer. I got switches for each of them. So they're separate systems. But I can have the top running and the bottom off. I could add more timers and have each light set on different timers. So you can modify these systems the way you want to. Resources, lots of YouTube channels, books are out there. I've got a few up here that I have listed. Gardening Indoors with Solar and Hydroponics by George Van Pan. Probably the best books you can find out for reference. So if you understand temperature effects on plants and growing, you understand the light, the wavelengths of light, what it does to different plants. Like you can get your grow lights to have blue wavelength, and they'll stay stunning. They'll still grow, but they'll be more stunning. So light will affect how the plants grow. You can tailor stuff that way. Some of the other books, step-by-step instructions for how to build different systems right here. He shows you different things he's put together, all the stuff you need to go put together. Hydroponics, greenhouse gardening, good resource there to look at. And I kind of put this, some of this came back from the summer, so I can't guarantee the price of the books. But the gardening and soil hydroponics, $24, Amazon, it's well worth the money. You come check the book out, I've got it here. Websites, this is just a couple. Home Hydro Systems, got a lot of good stuff on there. Tomorrow Garden, he's taking, you shouldn't have build a vertical, kind of like a juice plus, but, you know, if I want to have a tall garden with different plants on different sides growing vertically, do I need to go spend $500 or $600 on the juice plus tower garden and everything like that? Do I have some 6-inch or PVC, or do I have a, say, 7 or 10-inch square? Everybody seen that white plastic fencing everybody gets these days? You can get close to the solid. You can get some of that, and that's your guy to show you how to put the cut length, taking a heat gun, heating it up, and shoving a bottle in there, a Coke bottle, making the form so part of it comes out, part of it goes in, dropping that cut. Take that, put a hole in a 5-gallon bucket lid, stick it in the button on the bucket, you put a pump up there, you run a tube up to the top, make it so it showers down from the top inside. You got a hydro system. You got a hydroponics you can grow with, using something like simple as that. It allows you to be very creative. So that's the neat thing about it. You can look, you'll see people doing all sorts of stuff with these. So that's kind of all the stuff I had. So but here's something to think about. What you can do, I've kind of covered, I know, rather quickly. We don't have a very short time period this, but here's a nice thing or a neat thing you can do with hydroponics and these different, you can tailor it to what you want. So we can set up a 100-gallon reservoir here with a big, good pump. I come out here with a manifold system. Now I can run off of that manifold. I come over here to a vertical garden where I've got some different plants growing with grow lights. I come over here to 5-gallon buckets where I'm dripping in from the top down to the bottom, draining out. I got a common return drain line for all these systems. I've got tomatoes growing. I got another 5-gallon buckets over here with cucumbers, if you like cucumbers, or peppers. I can then come over here, and I got a bunch of strawberry plants growing. Strawberries do good with this, so I got this in my greenhouse, so I'm going out in the middle of winter, I'm having fresh strawberries, tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, leafy green, whatever you want. All this runs back to a common system, recirculate, and then I go out and I adjust the water. Lots of different things out there, lots of stuff that's prefab, so all you have to do is buy it, put the kit together, go forth and use it. Or you can be creative, if you're DIY, you know, like doing stuff yourself, DIY, you design your own system, play around with and learn. There's lots of things you can do with a lot, and it's very flexible, lots of possibilities. That's the neat thing about the hydroponics. There's so much to be done with so many different ways of doing it. So, and I covered a lot kind of quick, so, yes?
I understand about feeding the roots and everything, but how do you actually start, if you've got tomato seed?
All right, so that is where your medium comes in, and I apologize, I didn't bring anything with me, but there's a thing called a rapid rooter plug, which is maybe 1.5 inches tall and square. And you can put your seeds in there, you can put them in the standard starter tray like you would any other plant. They start growing, and once the roots come out the bottom, it's kind of soft. You just take it, drop it in the next cup, and it grows. Rock wool, you can buy a rock wool, again, this is basically what it is, rock wool. You drop the seed in there, you get it in the water, it starts to grow. Those things are dry, so you get about 1 use out of these. Sometimes you can get a couple uses out of them if you really work at it, but they're usually 1 use kind of items. The different mediums are. So you start in the medium, then you go to the place that when we started, our lack of knowledge and everything, we bought it from a local company. Well, they had a farm. They had a very large greenhouse where they were setting these systems. They had put towers out there growing stuff, in coming, the water coming to the top, going down, growing. They were selling seedlings. So we go out there and spend $1 doing the seedling to put back and put the tower. And spending, $50 on nutrients. Oh, and then charging 20 for shipping. They were using their nutrients. I said, before I got smart with some of this stuff. So lots of things that you learn as you go along. A great resource is all these hydroponic places, because they have a lot. So go check them out. Check a lot of stuff on the web, and look at it. It's a great added preparedness, because 2 is 1, 1 is none. If I've got indoor hydroponics, I've got gardening outside, if something happens to one, I still got the other. Okay.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Dan will continue to leave his books up here for a little while after we're done, so you can come look at his books. Just like I always say when I put my books out, they're for you to look at, not for you to take. And then I've got a couple of books that I use, The Secure Home and The High Security Shelter. These are both kind of construction manuals if you're trying to improve your home. I've used some of those things when I've built shelter things. Also, on our Facebook and Preppernet page, we'll post some links. In a couple of weeks, we'll have the video up, so you can watch the video or look at that, or any of our past meetings, you can look up the videos there if you want to. Let's do our drawing real quick. As I'm going over to get these things. Remember, next month, it's all about medical. So normally Carol and Mike are here. They had obligations tonight, so they couldn't be here, but they're a regular attender. They are both, one's a paramedic supervisor and one is a paramedic trainer. And so they're going to bring their skills to our next month's meeting and talk about all things medical. So what supplies you need, what training you need, and that type of thing. So they are very knowledgeable, and they've taught before a couple of years ago, and it's very informative. Try to make it real practical for preppers, what kind of medical training and products you need. So that's next month. So for our drawing tonight, here you go, Melvin. Grab us the name out of there. This is our attendance drawing. So we'll pull 2 out of this bucket. Let's see, Gary 2161. Is Gary 2161 here? Oh, there's Gary. Okay, come on up, Gary. You get to pick another one out of here to tell us what prize you get. Okay. What does that say? It says the Survival and First Aid Kit. So I picked these up on a Black Friday deal, and they have a pretty cool little kit. It's got all kinds of things from flashlights and knives and first aid kits and all kinds of stuff. There's supposed to be 42 different things in there. So yeah, you're welcome. You don't get to go yet. Hold on. You get to draw the next name. What does it say? Billy B 5735. Billy, well, here you go. Grab you a prize out of there. You were supposed to draw his name, weren't you?
I didn't want to make it
Too obvious. Okay. What'd you get? You get your books. Okay. Very good. So he gets the Back to Basics Homesteading Guide and the EMP Storms and Solar Attacks book. And you get to draw our next one. This is our I Did It drawing. We got Lowell Yates. And would you say you installed a backflow prevention device? Yes, we talked about that. Great job. Come on up, Lowell. When we taught about sewer a few months ago, there's also an online video, he installed that backflow prevention device in his house. I did. Okay, you got the 4 personal water filters. So these are like the life straws. So great to put in your bug out bag or whatever. So those are 4 personal water filters. And where are we at? You were the 3rd one, so this is the 4th one, I think. Betty 0029. Betty, come on up. There you go. Okay. What did Betty get? Betty, you got the life tent. So another great item for your bug out bag, and it has several different things in there, but it's a life tent, kind of a bivy type of thing. Okay, Betty, you get to draw our guest drawings. So these people either are guests or they brought a guest. Tom Lambie, come on up, Tom. And this was your first time, is that right? Okay, good to have you. Get a prize on your first time, what a deal. Just one prize, man. You can't take 3 of them. What's this one? Okay, let's see here. You get the MSR water filter. So this is a great backpacking or camping water filter. Good job. Yeah. Now stay here. One more name out of there. Ava Stegmiller. Something like that. Come on up. It's your first time, I'm assuming? Okay, wonderful. Good to have you. Yeah, let's see what you get. You get the vacuum sealer. There you go, vacuum sealer yourself some food there. Good job. Okay, thanks everybody for coming. We are done. 2 last announcements. First of all, the meeting tonight is free, and we always keep it free, and as far as I'm concerned, we'll always be that way, but we do have expenses. The room costs us almost $300 a night, plus all the prizes and stuff, so if you want to donate, there's a donation jar on your way out. Second thing is, if you're available to help us clean up a little bit, we have to put up all the tables and chairs and clean up just a little bit, so if you want to help with that, that would be great. Thanks for coming.